Brother.
Hi, guys. It is a spectacularly gorgeous, over the top beautiful. It is the final night of winter 2024. We are saying goodbye to the winter of 2024, and it is going to be 38 degrees here. And now, one of the coldest nights of the year will happen 1 hour after springtime arrives here in Dundalum, Florida on this gorgeous, I think it is a Tuesday night, March 19th, 2024. But guys, it is that time again. The Smothers Brothers of the Lugosphere have been served up
Tommy.
that we cannot let pass without some comment, amplification, clarification, hopefully a little bit of dark, acerbic, ironic humor. But I want to welcome aboard my co-conspirator in the Doomosphere, Dr. Eliot Jacobson. Come on and say hi to the folks. And
Hi, Sam. This is just the strangest moment of time that we're in right now. I mean, aside from the whole planet being fucked, I mean, completely off the rails with what's going
even
on.
without that, it would be a strange moment in time.
Yeah, we have essentially people going against what has been like the mainstream communication points that have been sort of put out by every major climate scientist and climate science body and organization over the last decade. We now have an article where people are saying none of that is true. None of it, right?
Well, this is somehow I managed to let it go about the recent decision to say we're not in the Anthropocene because we can't agree when it began. So we're not in it. Everyone knows goddamn well we're in the Anthropocene, but since it did not happen on June 5th, 1952 at 4:30 in the afternoon, we're not in it. That's absolutely absurd. But somehow, well, I didn't keep my mouth shut, but I did. But somehow I kept from calling you to invite you to weigh in on that one. I don't know how. I was just so busy with other shit in my life, but I can't let this one pass. So anyway, guys, what we're talking about here, before we go one step further, what Eliot and I are talking about, I did a video on my channel, Collapse Chronicles, and Eliot's channel is the other CC of the Doomosphere, Climate Casino. I did a video last night on this article from Salon Magazine, as you can see, titled, Will Earth Hit a Climate Tipping Point? If you have not read, if you did not listen to my video, if you have not read that article, you really need to hit the pause button. And it's a long, involved article, and read the article. Okay. Stop listening to us and read the article, and you will get a lot more out of the next, I don't know, hour of your time. So anyway, I'm going to let you guys go and do that. But for those of you who have read it and trying to figure out what to do with it, we're not just going to sit here and reread the entire article. You can do that yourself. We're just going to look at some of the salient points in it. And the reason that we're paying this more attention than we might be is that the venerable James Hansen is one of the major people. Obviously, James Hansen has been smoking the opium pipe with Michael Mann.
Yeah.
Are you as shocked or not shocked that Michael Mann's name was nowhere mentioned in this article? I see Michael Mann's fingerprints all over this story, although he did, I think Michael Mann, for once in his life, decided not to. I guarantee you they call Michael, I guarantee you they called Michael Mann, but he thought in this case he was going to let James Hansen do his bidding for him. Do you kind of agree or disagree with that,
Well,
Elliot?
I actually think that that Michael Mann might be enough of a scientist to acknowledge there really are tipping points.
Oh, there you go.
You know, there is just that possibility that he disagreed with James Hansen
Well,
in this
he's
one
always
case.
disagreeing with James Hansen. Michael Mann is always saying, so maybe we need to get Michael Mann on the phone and say, Michael Mann, what do you think of James? So we need to get Michael Mann's opinion of this. But anyway, we're not gonna we're not gonna sit here and read the article. But I want you, Elliot, I'll let you read just the opening lead to this long, involved story because I think we've discovered a lot of the problem about the article in the opening sentence. So read the opening sentence, Elliot, and give me your opinion of it, and I will weigh in afterwards. So read the sentence.
I'm not sure I can get through this sentence without puking or something. I mean, honestly,
Do your best.
the opening sentence to the first comma, all right, to the first
You
comma.
don't even have to get to the period.
No, it's a long sentence. People who follow climate change are often told there is a tipping point. All right.
Go ahead. Go to the period.
Yeah, a single moment after which it will be too late to reverse the damage caused by our excessive use of fossil fuels. So it is clear from this right away that the author does not understand what a tipping point is. A tipping point is not a singular thing where the climate has tipped. It's not like yesterday the climate was this way and today the climate is that way. And I don't know who the people would be who are telling this thing. I mean, who is going to go out and say, hey, I mean, which scientist, which climate scientist? Where's the quote from a climate scientist saying there is a climate tipping point?
There's obviously one group, which I mentioned on that other channel day. I was thinking, I had, okay, Eliot Jacobson, have you ever in your entire life said that there is a climate tipping point, tipping point singular, a singular moment, a singular moment when we're fucked up to the point we're not fucked. And then at 4:45 p.m., we are fucked. Have you ever in your entire life made such an absurd statement?
I'm thinking December 31st, 2025, might be the moment. It's just a crazy sentence. I mean, here's the thing. I got to tell you this quick little story. So
Okay.
I went out to lunch with this doomer. I mean, super nice guy, right? And he said to me, he said, it feels like the climate is past a tipping point. And I'm like, what tipping point? He said, well, the climate is past. What tipping point?
So what did he say? What was his answer?
It's not like the tipping point is that, oh, it's 72 degrees outside when it should be 60, or there's no bees, or there's a flood and there's a heat wave in Brazil. I mean, those are not tipping points. And so this conception that there is this singular event, beyond which everyone with common sense will now say, oh, the climate is tipped, right? It's just on its face, it just shows ignorance of a huge area of climate science that, most doomers are completely knowledgeable about. I'm very surprised.
There is a glaring exception. There is one group, and we all know who they are.
Yes.
And I'm not going to waste much of this interview talking about them, but I'm going through, have I ever heard a doomer say this? I've interviewed like 200 people. I have never heard anybody say this ever in my, I have never said it. I don't know anyone. There is one group, and we all know the group. It is the near-term human extinction group of clueless morons talking about the infamous blue ocean event. That is going to be the singular tipping point that we are not coming out of, that the ice in September of whenever, let's call it September 2024, is going to be less than 1 million square kilometers. And the spring of 2025, the entire globe's agriculture system is going to collapse, and billions of people will starve to death, and civilization will collapse within 1 year of there being a blue ocean event. So not count, and I don't count that. I completely discount that. I have from day one. I see no evidence that even if that does happen, that is going to result in the starvation of 4 billion people within 6 months. Not counting that. Okay, and I don't count that. I have never heard any doomer with a brain talk about a singular moment when things are going to be just completely, we're not coming back from it.
So there's even a worse problem with this. If you could believe, the sentence has another problem, and that is that it says that after which it will be too late to reverse the damage by our excessive use of fossil fuels. It's already too late to reverse the damage of our excessive use of fossil fuels, right? I mean, it's
we're 10 minutes
already,
into this, and we haven't even gotten through the first sentence of this damn article yet.
I mean, it's already too late. You know, the warming that's in the pipeline, which is a James Hansen paper, right? Saying that we're going to get, I mean, his upper end prediction is 10°C of warming, but I mean, even the best climate scientists out there are saying we're going to sail past 2°C, right? So sailing past 2°C is going to trigger actual tipping points, right? Of which there are 16 of them, according to Johan Rockström. So, you know, there's an actual list of climate tipping points, and this will trigger those things. You know, so yes, we have already gone too far, so that at least 4 or 5 of these tipping points are absolutely gonna get triggered. It is already too late. So yeah, there's not one singular one like today civilization will exist and tomorrow it's doom and extinction. But there's a whole spectrum of these things that we've already you know, sold out to. There's no way we're going to avoid these things. So
this is the essential problem with this article. It gets back to semantics. In the first sentence, they talk about a singular event, and then as the article progresses, they just slip into making it plural. That there's going, I don't have it, but what would they, at some point way down in the article, I like the term a constellation, that instead of tipping points.
So I got it right here. I'll read it to you. I'll read this one to you. All right. The Earth's climate is far more complicated than such framing suggests. Instead of seeking a single moment when a figurative switch is flipped, people should look for a constellation of warning signs. There are already many signs that the planet's rising temperature is leading to ecological devastation.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I'm going to change the name of my channel to Constellation of Warning Signs Chronicles. All right. Come on, people. This is hair-splitting semantics that is just come into common usage. A constellation of warning signs. I always use the analogy of a toxic stew, is what I call it. That all the energy that people go into trying to, to parse out one ingredient that if we could just get rid of this, capitalism or whatever. I'm always reminded of this absolute clueless moron named Mike Adams, the health ranger. He's one of Alex Jones' buddies in Austin, Texas. After Fukushima, this man was seriously claiming the day after Fukushima that the northern hemisphere was going to be uninhabitable by the end of 2011. He was calling it. He was calling it the the meat cleaver. A preposterous statement, absolutely preposterous statement. And I think he lives in Austin, Texas, not in Tierra del Fuego, as far as I know. But this is just this is what I think maybe they're referring to, that they're talking about people that clueless, talking about a single event.
Yeah.
But anyway, do you want to have fun with James Hansen? Of course, what got me going in the big score for Salon was getting James Hansen
Yeah.
and getting him to waffle about
Look, I kind of understand his issue, all right? I'm kind of sympathetic with him, and maybe you are too, just a little bit, right? Because I mean, the people really are, as he says, misusing and abusing the idea of a tipping point, right? It's sort of one of these things where the terminology is just thrown around so often that as a climate scientist or just an educated guy like you are, right? You hear people using these things in ways that don't make sense to you over and over and over again. And that's the majority of the times you hear it. You hear very few people using the terminology climate tipping point correctly, right? Or in a correct setting. So, it must be very frustrating as an academic like he is in this area to hear people constantly misrepresenting it. But then he just says, I mean, he is saying stuff though that is just like so stretching to not use the word, right? So here's one of the things he said later in the paper, right? So yeah, sure, I give him credit for the opening paragraph where he kind of but he goes deep into it later in the paper. Let me read one. There is a tremendous store of carbon in permafrost, which, if all released to the atmosphere, would have a devastating climate impact. Yeah, of course, right? Hansen said. He explained how the carbon dioxide that's released by melting permafrost, they should have said methane, amplifies the global warming caused by human-made greenhouse gases. But that would not happen all at once. Quote, it is rather slow and can be cut off if we begin to cool the planet.
There you go.
That's no small task, of course.
Okay. I admit that
my brain's exploded.
Studied the carbon bomb more than I have. At this point, can we stop the melting of the permafrost?
Can we stop? Yeah, sure. All we need to do is have every human alive split their wrists.
Well, they're okay.
I mean, that would work, wouldn't it?
It would be. It would be a good start in the right direction.
I mean, but seriously, right, yeah. Sam, can we stop the permafrost from this car? So here's another one of these things that must be so frustrating as a climate scientist to hear so many people get wrong. Oh, the methane bomb has already gone off. Oh, we already have the Siberian permafrost. We have the the East Siberian Arctic Sea permafrost. We have the Canadian, and that's where all the methane's coming from. But so far, no. The answer is no, that's not where it's coming from, right? They do these carbon isotope studies, so that's not where it's coming from. But what is true is that the boreal permafrost, right, is one of the top 5 tipping points. So if you ask which tipping points are going to happen the fastest on the planet, given the heating that's going on, That is in the top 5, right?
So you do think the melting perm? I mean, I certainly think it's one of the wait, constellation of warning signs.
Yes, it's in the
It's
constellation
in the
of warnings.
constellation.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Melting the permafrost and releasing that methane is
that
in
is
the constellation.
that is in the
It's
constellation.
going to be a huge warning sign when methane suddenly goes through the roof and the planet heats up by 6C. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty big
That
warning.
that'll be in the constellation. You know, that's and his comment about he's not sure that obliterating a species off the face of the planet would count as a tipping point. Now,
Let me read that one. Let me read that one.
if you read the
Let me read that one for the benefit
read
of
the
the audience
exact
here.
context of the quote.
Right, because yeah, another one where your head explodes, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
article has multiple head exploding moments.
Multiple head explosions, a constellation of head explosions during the article.
Hansen added that mass extinctions are certainly irreversible, although they may not be counted as tipping points exactly. Quote from Hansen: extermination of species is practically irreversible. And some
Practically,
ecosystems, right? So practically irreversible. And some ecosystems can collapse if key species go extinct. And we are in the midst of a mass extinction event, Hansen said. I think what he meant when I read that,
okay. What do you think he meant?
I think he meant like what we're trying to do with the woolly mammoth DNA, that if you keep a store of DNA of these extinct species, that it may be possible at some future time to regenerate the species back into existence by virtue of some, cloning or DNA science. So I think that's what he's referring to.
But for someone of James Hansen's obviously intelligence and education to call the obliteration of an entire species off the face of a planet practically irreversible, but not necessarily a tipping point. Now, did the extinction of the passenger pigeon throw some system out of order? It probably did. But if you are a passenger pigeon, okay, I assure you that they consider when Martha died in the Chicago Zoo in 1914, any extinct passenger pigeon would tell you we hit a tipping point in the Chicago Zoo in 1914 when Martha died. Okay, that was the tipping point, at least for us, and for someone to sit there and make a statement that absurd. I'm embarrassed for the man, Elliot.
Well,
I'm on record saying that.
I want to distinguish what a tipping point is in the context of climate change, as opposed to what a tipping point is in the context of a species, right?
Yeah.
So Rockstrom, right, with the guy with the planetary boundaries, like one of the planetary boundaries is the biosphere, right? The living, the animals, the plants, the fish, the bacteria. So what is true is that there are these things called keystone species. So, but for the existence of that species, the entire that entire regional biosphere would collapse. An example of that would be coral, right? So coral is a keystone species, and coral is also, getting obliterated right now around the planet by this massive ocean heat that's ongoing. So it is true that an individual species is not, technically a tipping point if it goes extinct in sort of the IPCC definition, but the death of a species can have an effect on an entire part of the planet.
Yeah.
So we're in the 5th coral bleaching event in the Great Barrier Reef in the last 8 years. And, you know, the science says that it takes 10 years to recover from one bleaching event. You know, we've had 5 in the last 8 years. So, you know, we are pretty much the entire ocean biosphere around, you know, coastal continents around the planet and the equatorial regions depends on these reefs. And, you know, elephants would be another example, or lions, or, you know, vultures, you know, where if these species were to go extinct, we would have a huge, the entire collapse of a regional biosphere.
Now humans are an anti-keystone species. We're as far from we're the antithesis of a keystone species, and we would go extinct. Uh, every other, from vultures to elephants to corals, would be having a heyday. I do want to mention, speaking of Rockstrom, that the Guardian comes out today, which will be my rant tomorrow, with an excellent article talking about how 180-degree opposite from this article. And they actually, in the article, talk about tipping points in the Guardian article, just clearly talking about tipping points. But
let me actually throw a picture just to be sort of correct in an academic way. Let me share my screen here and show everyone. This is from Rockstrom. This is from the institute that he comes from, their image. And so I just want to make sure to give them credit for this. But this actually lists the major tipping points around the planet, right? Right here, you can see them.
Yeah.
And so what are those tipping points? Well, the ones that are happening right now, right? They're actually happening, are the ones that you see between 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius, which is where we are at this moment in terms of global warming, are the Greenland ice sheet, the boreal permafrost, right? That's Canada, that had, believe it or not, its warmest winter ever by almost 8 degrees Fahrenheit. Right. It's like like not just a little bit warmer than it ever was before, 8 degrees on average warmer than it ever was before. The West Antarctic ice sheet and the coral reefs is the other thing I mentioned, right? So those are the things that are happening right now as we speak. The permafrost, the ice sheets, and the coral. So, I mean, this is not some sort of academic discussion about what's going to happen when, or what might happen, or what constitutes a tipping point. These are tipping points that are going on right now. And I mean, one of the problems with this article is that it wants to say that a tipping point doesn't happen all at once, therefore it's not really a tipping point. And let me just give an example. Like this right here, you know, if I could balance it, then it tips. And it's kind of all at once. But the point of a tipping point for the climate is that we have multiple stable states. In other words, they're not just like one state where this thing can occur. There's multiple stable states. And it takes a lot of energy to get between those states. And one of, you know, for example, melting an ice sheet, right? It's perfectly fine for that ice sheet, that Greenland to have all that ice. And it's perfectly fine for it to not have any ice. But once it doesn't have any ice, it is really, really hard to get it to have ice again, right? So multiple stable states. And critical also to that definition is that changing from one state to another creates global impacts on the climate and the biosphere. So it doesn't matter if it takes 5 years or 50 years or 1,000 years. Once we set in motion the feedbacks that are going to result in the tipping point, it's too late. So we could say that, oh yeah, we could stop the Greenland ice sheet, you know, today. No, we can't. It's already done. It's just a question of time. It's already done. you know.
Okay, a couple more things on the tipping points, then we're going to get into the whole other side of this article. There's two main parts of this video, but I want to touch on a couple of more of the head explosions, of the constellation of head explosions. This guy, Kenneth Trenberth, I think is,
Yeah.
I guess he's written over 600. I've actually read some of his stuff on my channel. I love this one. Unfortunately, it's not a direct quote. This is the reporter paraphrasing. Trenberth listed off variables that could be viewed by future historians as tipping points, but which may not be recognized as such by contemporaries living through them. I've tried to unpack what the hell that means. I mean, we could have all we could have all that could be longer than our ain't gonna happen list. What is it? The list of variables that could be viewed by future historians as tipping points.
Big problem right off. There will not be any future historians.
That implies, yeah, it implies there will be future historians.
Yeah, okay. So
that implies irradiated cockroaches will become eventually, and jellyfish. Jellyfish will eventually, in 10 million years, evolve in the future, and they're going to look back at the 21st century and say that was a damn good century. That we would not be historians today if those damn humans hadn't set off all those tipping points in the 21st century and made us the gene pool for the next level.
All right, our cockroach overlords await our demise. But
yeah, I understand
no.
what they're saying. I mean, but he's basically admitting I might have a blind spot, because he is quoted as saying somewhere in here. This is a quote directly from the man. There are no real tipping points. Somewhere in this article, not far above there, when they first introduced this Trenberth,
I found it.
No real tipping points.
Okay, so I mean, this already tells you there's a bias, right? That the author of the article had a bias in mind and went out fishing for people to confirm his bias. Kevin Trenberth, a distinguished scholar, explaining in an email to Salon that, quote, there are no real tipping points. There are times when the rates of change may increase substantially because of feedback, but it's not like a pencil balancing on its end that when touched, it topples over. So he's misunderstanding the definition of a climate tipping point here. Yeah. I mean, he fundamentally does not understand that a climate tipping point is not saying it's going to happen fast. What it's saying is that there are multiple stable states for this particular thing. And once you set in motion the trajectory from one state to another, it's unstoppable, right? It doesn't mean it's going to happen over. It's like that is a super huge pencil, right? And that pencil is 100 miles high. And so you might not notice that it's tipping because it's 100 miles high, but the thing is tipping, right? And it's going to fall, and it might take 100 years or 50 years, or you talk about sea level rise as an example of what future historians will regard as the tipping point. Sea level rise is not the tipping point. The tipping point is already named as the Greenland ice sheet and the West Antarctic ice sheet, and ultimately the East Antarctic ice sheet after all the feedbacks, right? So, I mean, that just sort of shows this level of not even paying attention to some weird thing about cockroaches you're inventing about future historians, right? Sam, it is so poorly written. It is so bad. This article is, I mean, it's so embarrassing for James Hansen, right? To be associated. Can you imagine
the amount of shit that he's eating? You have to, that man is getting a well-deserved triple dose of shit.
Yeah, I can't believe like as we're talking about this, right? The absurdity of what these people are saying is just like is compounding, right? I don't like to ever use the word exponential, but the damage to James Hansen's reputation as an academic is decreasing exponentially as we read through this paper.
I think it hit a tipping point in this
I think you're right.
I think
Yeah.
that James Hansen is looking for the tipping point in his career. It was March 18, 2024.
I mean,
That's
did
when
he even realize what he was contributing to, right? The
uh,
piece of trash that he was contributing to when he said these things. Because if you actually read most of what Hansen said in isolation from this other stuff, it's not that far away. I mean, the thing about extinction, yeah, practically, practically. Oh
okay, well,
man, Sam,
I,
this is so sad.
as a segue into the other part of this rant, I don't even know this woman's name. I had never heard of her, but can we find the number one head explosion in the article about the Amazon rainforest collapse? Probably it is going to collapse, but she does not necessarily consider the collapse of the Amazon rainforest to be irreversible.
Yeah, I found that. Let me read it.
Okay.
So her last name is Strove, Stroebe. And she said, similarly, Strove speculated that there could be a tipping point like event in the Amazon
Tipping
rainforest.
point like event, not a tipping point. A tipping point like
Like
event,
event.
not a tipping point. It's a tipping point like
Like
event. Okay,
event.
she does admit that there could be a tipping point like
Like
event.
event.
All right, in the end, okay, finish if you can.
It's hard, Sam. I mean, you crack me up. You're just like, okay. Okay, so she speculated there could be a tipping point like event in the Amazon rainforest. If its area shrinks so much that it cannot generate enough water vapor to support itself.
Yeah.
Strove said she isn't sure
Quote,
if it's
quote,
irreversible, though.
yeah. She is not, quote, sure if that would be irreversible enough. Okay, guys. This is just me, but I know people have a hard time believing this, but I really was. I have 5 years of journalism training, and for many years, I actually was a professional journalist who would interview hundreds of people. If someone said something to me that jaw-droppingly, patently absurd, my head would explode as a journalist. Did the journalist, whoever heard that this woman spout this absolutely absurd statement that any fourth grader knows is complete and utter horseshit, did they sit there? I think of I call it the dashboard chihuahua, with a little head bobbing. Did this reporter have this woman say to him or her, whoever it was, that the collapse of the Amazon rainforest is not necessarily irreversible, and not sit there and stop the presses and say, what in the fuck are you talking about, you clueless moron? How did you ever get a degree in science to make a statement that patently absurd? What the fuck is going through her mind by stating that?
So you're asking
I'm asking
me.
you. I'm asking you, Elliot.
Okay. So here's what's going on in the Amazon, right? This is one of the
I
16.
want to know what's going on in her mind.
I'm going to
Worse
try
than
and
what's going on in the Amazon.
I'm going to tell you what's going on in her mind. I've got
The
it.
same.
I've got it. Okay. So what's happening in the Amazon is that it's on fire right now. There's more fire than there's ever been in the Amazon. Yeah, they're not burning it, for palm oil, and beef, it's just on fire, right? So the whole thing's going to burn down. It's going to get replaced with savanna. Once it gets replaced with savanna, it's going to change the whole hydrological cycle for the planet. But
She doesn't know if that's irreversible or not.
well, but here's what's true. Earth is actually in one of these Milankovitch cycles where in 100,000 years,
Okay.
we're not gonna be able to do anything. It's gonna get cooler, and it'll get, so it's likely that maybe in 500,000 years the species will start regenerating. It is equatorial after all, and I think what she's saying is that in the long run, that part of the planet is likely to become a jungle again
On a
geological scale. And this article does this a lot. It skips between human timeframes and geological timeframes, and they sort of they don't even tell you they're doing that. But I have a feeling that's exactly what she's saying here right now, is that it is not irreversible on geological timescales.
Okay, so she's not suggesting
that we're going to go out and plant a bunch of
tree
trees. Yeah, we're going to replant the Amazon. I mean, this whole tree planting thing, it's like, does anybody out there really think that planting trees is going to save the planet, right? I mean, the latest study I read on this, and this is just as an aside, right, is that because we're sort of planting monoculture forests, to replace these things, they're actually, the leaf, the canopy is actually darker shades of green than the original canopy. So it's absorbing more heat. So the net result of these tree plantings is to heat the planet even faster.
It has taken me 3 days to chainsaw down 200 trees, and that's what I've been doing in the last. I mean, to chainsaw down 200 of those fucking trees, and I'm thinking to myself out there today, as I'm chainsawing tree after tree after tree, I'm like what the hell if I actually had to plant these sons of bitches? I'd be out here for the rest of my life. But anyway, all joking aside,
I've got another tipping point for you, all right, from this lady.
Okay, before we segue into doomerism. Okay.
Yeah, one more, all right.
One more.
You got to tell me how we're going to do this. So the same lady says, quote, "The loss of Arctic sea ice in summer would be a tipping point, but it's not irreversible. On a geological time scale, ice sheets have come and gone."
Yeah. Okay, that's okay.
So
yeah.
she actually
Same with rainforest.
Yeah, so she's actually saying it that I'm sorry, global industrial civilization, you're totally fucked. But in 100,000, maybe a million years, everything will be fine.
Okay, well, I kind of hope it sounds like you're giving her the benefit of the doubt. So I'll try to join you. That she could not be that stupid to suggest that humans in a human scale time frame would replant the Amazon rainforest with the 100,000 species that are going to go down with all the trees. That somehow we're going to get some Noah's Ark going on down there. Let me
Yeah, well, so she says, fine, I mean, we'll finish, I can finish with, she says, the term forever. Nice, by the way, that's a nice view right there, Sam. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, my armpit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the damn battery. There we go. All right.
You forgot to plug it in. That's a good idea.
Yes. All right.
So she says the term forever means one thing for geologists and glaciologists, and quite another to a person who wants to gaze upon the ice sheets with their own eyes. So, I don't even know why that would be part of this article. Like nothing to do with tipping points has to do with a million years from now. This is the collapse of global industrial civilization that we're witnessing right now today, right? These are tipping points that are going to take place over the next 100 years. This is not as it's an irrelevant statement. So yeah, thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam, for bringing this piece of crap nonsense to my attention and having me spend a few minutes of my life actually
Well,
digest
we're
it. It's been good for me because what it does is it sort of strengthens the viewpoint that these folks are desperate to have collapse not happening. They're absolutely desperate to have tipping points not happening. They're desperate to be able to change the conversation to say it's not really this bad.
okay, so that will be our to the whole second part of this. And way up in the beginning of the article, I think you might have read the sentence about that there's two things wrong with the tipping point, that it oversimplifies the science. And you find up towards the beginning about it oversimplifying the science, and it let me
Yeah. Yet many scientists do not like the term because they feel it oversimplifies the science or because it cultivates a fatalistic outlook.
there you go. There you go. Which is really what this story is about. And this is just the latest example of shitting on doomers. This whole thing, and now we can get over. Let's just let's finish out that last story, and then we'll go over to this one. Back up and read the very last story from the closing two paragraphs, and that will segue us in.
Oh, Sam, this is all right. Here goes. Here goes.
Start out as Meyer noted.
As Meyer noted, this still emphasizes that the issue is very difficult to beat, but also established that it is not an impossible dilemma. In other words, a predicament. I worry about talking about climate change leading to civilization collapse or even human extinction will actually lead to fatalism and the thought that there is nothing society can do. So let's not worry about it. Climate change is a big challenge, but a solvable one.
There you go.
So yeah. So
it will lead to fatalism and the thought that there is nothing society can do, and it's not just the society, but it's the individual actions as well. And this is really what it's all about. Is this fact that if you can handle the truth, and you want to point it out to people that you are the problem. It's us damn doomers that are and now James Hansen is climbing on the shit on the doomer bandwagon. What's so bad? What's that song? What's so funny about peace, love, and happiness? What's so bad about fatalism? I don't know. I don't personally know any doomers that are in a fetal position in the bottom of a dark closet.
yeah, shivering, sucking their thumbs,
No, I have been more active since I became now I admit sometimes as active chopping down 200 trees since I became a doomer. But this call up your new article, and I never did get a total number of times this man used the word action.
Well, I
Did you
did.
count it?
I did count them. So what this article is about was the scientific study about communicating about the climate change and what is the most effective communication methodology, what is the least effective communication methodology. And the whole point was if you communicate in the right way, you'll get people to take an action.
There you go.
And so above everything else, let's talk about these 8 or 10 different communication strategies. And I'm just going to sort of flash this up here.
But he did give Doomers a mixed review. He did admit we're pretty good about getting the message out, but he claims we're getting the wrong message out. We are pretty good at getting the message out that there's not a fucking thing that any one of us is going to do about it. I've been trying to bring this message out for years. There's not a goddamn thing that any human being on from an individual level to a global wide political level is going to do. Even if we could, we wouldn't. So that's been my message, and I think I've been pretty effective at getting that out.
So what that is on this, so in talking about climate change, which is of course only one part of the planetary boundaries, right? But in talking about climate change, what you're using is the quote negative emotions intervention, which is defined to be exposes participants to ecologically valid scientific facts regarding the impacts of climate change, framed in a doom and gloom style of messaging that were drawn from different real-world news and media sources. So that is, you, and me to a large extent as well. And the question is how effective is that? All right, so I just have to tell you that this article attacks doomers from start to finish.
It does.
And what's interesting is what they actually sort of want to make the point about in this article is so the remarkable thing. Okay, so there's two things. One is that as far as communication goes, the doom messaging gets more feedback, more views, more shares, more watches than any of these other methodologies they describe. And their research proves that doom far and away is like the number one. And then they conclude is that although doom is the number one way to generate, response from an audience, it's also the number one least effective way of generating actual action on behalf of saving the planet. Now, they use that word action, and you asked me to count action. Now, they never say what the action is in the article, right?
How many times do they say the word action?
They say it 16 times.
16.
And they say it they say the word inaction twice. And they use these adjectives in describing the various actions.
Okay,
real action, concrete action, personal action, individual level action, effortful action, climate action, and positive climate action.
All right.
Right? Now here's the
and never give an example of it.
And they never give a single example.
They had 16 opportunities to give one example.
One example.
And then I could have put this story in my Ain't Gonna Happen roundup on Friday. I wish the fuck they had put 16 of them. Then I would have had 16 to add to my Ain't Gonna Happen.
If you actually look at the research, they do have an action. All right. So I got to tell you what the action is. So when they were studying these people, right? What they said is, look, we're going to give you a computer screen.
Yeah.
And every time you fill out a form, we will plant a tree. We want, and they gave them some task to fill out some meaningless piece of paper that nobody cared about. And what they found out is that doomers on average planted less trees, virtual trees, because it's really you just had a computer screen filling out forms. Doomers on average planted fewer virtual trees than any other communication style. And let me just say, that's good on the doomers, because we're smart enough to know that planting trees is absolute bullshit, right? It is like a zero effective.
Especially fruit trees. I have to admit, I have given up on planting. A 64-year-old doomer does not plant fruit trees.
But I'll tell you, if they had said, as far as their action step, for each one of these forms you fill out, we will offer free sterilization to one individual so that they will not have children.
Yes.
Right?
I've been filling out those sons of bitches all day long, man.
You bet.
I would have carpal tunnel syndrome by the end of the day from filling out those damn forms.
I mean, they just do not understand what climate action is. So it's not that doomers don't want to do climate action. It's that the thing that doomers view as climate action is the one thing that nobody would ever.
Was it anywhere of keeping your pecker in your pants? Was it anywhere on the action, the real concrete positive climate action that you could do? Keep your damn pecker in your pants. Was that in there?
No. But I mean, it is a really interesting article because you know, it is just an all-out attack on doomers above all else. And I mean, honestly, they give this chart. I just have to show you this chart. I'm going to bring it up here because it's just, this thing is just fascinating to look at, right? So here's the actual chart. It's probably people are going to have to look at this thing, you know, freeze their screen. But if you look at this
can you
thing,
expand it a little bit or not?
yes, as much as I can do right there.
Okay, yeah,
you know, but you know, if you look at negative emotions, right? We're like, you know, all these things were at the bottom. But as far as number of trees planted, I just want to go to this number of trees. On average, a doomer would plant about 4.8 trees. Whereas someone using the most effective method of climate communication, according to these people, which is the scientific consensus. It is a scientific consensus. 99% of all scientists believe that. They're going to plant about 5.3 trees. So the difference between a doomer and you know, a scientist
it's a half a tree.
Is a half a tree. So that's what this is all about.
How about I like that, and I am thinking of doing the writing a letter to future generations. What? Tell us about that one. Expand on writing a letter. What was the point of writing a letter to future generations? Assuming there are future generations who are going to read your damn. I might actually do this one. So what does the research say about that one? About a doomer writing a letter to future which is kind of a contradiction in terms, I admit.
So there's, you know, this is just one of those methodologies of intervention, right? So appealing to future generations is, you know, so when you talk about the different ways, like you might cast the climate change message, right? A letter to a future generation emphasizes how one's current actions affect future generations by asking participants to write a letter to a socially close child who will read it in 25 years when they're an adult, describing your current actions towards creating a habitable planet. So
mine was getting sterilized before I had any future generations.
So
that was my number one personal responsibility. Action was preventing future generations from being born, so I don't have to write these goddamn letters.
Well, just so you know, that is about 4.9 trees. So it's about a tenth of a tree more than being a doomer, maybe 2/10 of a tree.
This and the fact that I'm a little bit embarrassed because again, my respect for Salon Magazine tumbled yesterday and resilience.org. I mean, you know, Robert Jensen is a regular contributor to resilience.org. Robert Jensen, if he looked at this, he would be. I wish we could bring Robert in. Sometime the guy really is. I mean, he is a hoot. Jensen is a great guy. He would be right in with this. A major doomer. But he writes for resilience.org, and I'm a little bit embarrassed at resilience.org. But the fact that you see this shit in Salon Magazine and resilience.org. Now, it's not like it's the Telegraph. that I mean, you can expect this shit on Fox News and the Telegraph, but now the shitting on doomers, showing up in these websites and nobody can deny that this is happening.
Yeah, I don't know why why doomers have become sort of the straw man of the week. It's like, well, what is your solution then, Mr. Doomer? Like, what's your solution? It's like, I don't need to have a solution. That's not part of the game we're playing here. Everybody needs to have a pet solution.
I've had it since day one. Keep your goddamn pecker in your pants and
Well,
don't let your knickers down.
well,
That's
that would
it.
have been
There's
great.
nothing beyond that.
It would have been great in about 1750, Sam, but that pecker's out of the pants.
That pecker left those pants 300 years ago.
Right. So we were way past
That
that.
ship is sailed.
Yeah. And
That sperm cell is sailed.
so
But
it's just a hard time, Sam. I mean, it's a hard time to be a doomer, and it's like getting attacked for like saying the obvious, for just sort of reflecting back to the planet when nobody else has the confidence to say, not doing it in a vindictive way or fatalistic way, or I mean, just sort of saying factually what's true, right?
yeah.
So
2 + 2 = 4. We're so fucked.
we're right. 100%.
I say them with about the same level of, all of this being accused of being a fear monger. I always say that fear implies doubt. That if you're 100% in acceptance of something, you're not afraid of it anymore. There's a very subtle difference between fear and acceptance, and the ingredient is doubt. I have no doubt that we are fucked, so I don't fear the fact that we're fucked. I'm sorry we're fucked. I have the wrong shirt on tonight. I should have put on my sorry. I am sorry that we're fucked, but it's not fear. It is it is just a no doubt obvious statement of fact to anybody who wants to read the constellation of whatever. It's way beyond the constellation. It's a fucking galaxy.
The constellation of warning signs.
Constellation of warning signs. It is a galaxy. There are more warning signs that this planet is fucked than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Come on, people, pull your head out of your ass, admit it. The feedbacks are feeding back. The tipping points are tipping. Is there going to be, well, short of, I guess global nuclear war? Can we agree? And that's looking more likely every day. So that is one. I'm surprised they never mentioned that one. That in that article, that would a global conflict, between the big guys, would that constitute a tipping point? Hiroshima was not a tipping point, I'm sure, according to James Hansen, but would it be next time? Would that satisfy that man?
So the question is, would the extinction of humanity and most life on the planet because we lit off 4,000 nukes mean that the governing board who makes the decision finally declares that we're in the Anthropocene? Was that enough? Is that enough for them?
Well, it's going to be kind of interesting that we enter the Anthropocene the day we go extinct.
I'm thinking that the future cockroaches will be able to tell that. Oh, that's why they went extinct. Our
Can we
cockroach
call the
historians.
day we go extinct day one of the Anthropocene or not? The age of humans, the tipping point for the age of humans is the day we went extinct. Is that going to work for anyway?
Sam, I think we're rambling here. I think we're
Yeah,
done.
we're rambling.
Um,
But it's been fun as always, and I'm sure some other head explosion will come along at some point soon enough that we can't keep our damn mouth shut about it, Elliot, and we'll have to come in and
well, it's been a pleasure, Sam. I'm a big fan, honestly. I mean, I both love talking with you and being your friend, but I'm also just a big fan of you and your channel. I hope everybody who doesn't know any better, who's like on my channel or my Twitter or something, will go over to Sam's and join him over there at Collapse Chronicles. All right, you find him on YouTube. He is just a mega
and
star
and
on
vice
Collapse
versa
over
for
there.
Climate Casino, where
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
the double C's. We're the CCs of the cubic centimeter of doom. You can find on each one of you can get a cubic centimeter of doom on either one of our channels. Anyway, I love you, brother,
All right,
and
you too. I love you.
I guess you will get this to me, and we will put it on
Very
our
shortly.
channels.